Hello and welcome to the show. I only just realised like 20 minutes ago when I filmed this that when you put the in the Forza Vista, you open the doors and stuff. When it goes to this sort of cinematic camera, it all stays open. So hey, I have an Audi R8 with all the bits open, and you can have a look at the shiny engine. Anyway, yes, today we are going to give our Stig a go with some cars. We had a very large power lap board on the previous game. Some 70 odd cars were driven around the track by our digital Stig, not the games one, because the games one is useless. Our digital Stig is much faster. But of course that lap leaderboard, sorry, is completely useless now because everything has changed. So we're going to sort of get things started with some cars. Now, unfortunately, with the way the game works, while for gameplay aspects, I quite like the system of you actually having to own the cars before you can use them when it comes to sort of online stuff or any other sort of stuff, not even online stuff, just use them in general. That does pose a few issues when we come to get the Stig to do laps because he has to actually own the cars to do them. So for this first episode, for these first laps at least, we're going to be using the rental cars. These are the cars that you can borrow from the game. It's not a huge selection of cars to choose from, but these are the best that we could do. Up first, we have the Audi R8 V10. I think it's the V10 Plus actually, just to be as specific as possible. It makes a lot of noise. It has really cool sounds on here that you may be able to hear. I don't know. It also goes very oddly quiet on the replays. Down this section, it's absolutely silent. And then, wait for it, all of a sudden noise has appeared. Or, has appeared the correct term for noise? I don't know. You know what I mean. So, yeah, we start with the Audi R8. It has the honour of going first and maybe a little slight disadvantage. While the Stig practiced at this track with different cars before going to these, each car is given 15 laps. So Stig has 15 laps to get used to the car and used to that car on the track. We do this so that Stig doesn't spend forever just going around and around and going faster and faster, because the more you practice at the track, the faster you are going to get, inevitably. So we have to limit the Stig, otherwise we'd never get him out of one car, to 15 laps with each vehicle, and this is the fastest lap within that 15 laps that counts. And the Audi does go first, so there is a small disadvantage in going first with this because, you know, Stig's only had the game for a week like the rest of us. So yeah, you know, there's a small disadvantage to the Audi, but it's still a very, very controlled lap for the R8. We may well see the Stig sliding the cars a little bit more than we would have done on 4, as there is a lot less grip in this game, so they may look some of the cars may look a little bit more flamboyant, but of course if you're going sideways you're not going forwards, so Stig is going to do his best not to be sliding the cars. One other little thing, it's a little bit more awkward parking the cars. They don't quite shuffle around as nicely as they used to on previous games. I think it's the way the clutch works now, so if you're running manual and clutch, you can't quite shuffle them around as quickly as you could in previous games. Anyway, up next we have another very nice sounding Audi. This is the RS5. I really do like the engines in the sort of the big, it's not quite a saloon, but in the big Audis they have really nice engines. I'm not sure if this is a V10 or a V8. I can't quite remember. There was an RS5 I think that had a V10. I can't remember if it's this one or not. I don't know. Some people will tell me in the comments what engine it has. Either way, I like it. It's a very nice engine. One thing with four-wheel drive cars on here now, it is quite nice driving four-wheel drive cars, having driven rear-wheel drive cars. It's just nice having that extra grip, and the fact that they understeer a little bit is more than made up for the fact that you can now just boot it and not really worry too much about everything. This car's not that bad to drive, as whenever we do these, I drive these cars so I know what I'm talking about before I start doing the commentary. The RS5, not a bad car to drive, really. It is quite big, it is quite heavy. For a power lapping car, for a hot lapping car, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it has that against it, but it's fairly easy to drive, really. That four-wheel drive system means you don't have too many worrisome moments, and of course it is pretty damn fast accelerating as it's four-wheel drive, and you can put the power down pretty much whenever you want to. Up next, we have got a Cadillac CTS-V Coupe. I believe this is the only Cadillac in the game. Not my favourite. I prefer the normal CTS-Vs. This one looks a bit... From the front it looks okay, from the back it looks bizarre, and from the side it looks all out of proportion. Not the nicest of looking cars, but it is mighty, mighty fast. The CTS-Vs, I don't know if they still do. The CTS-V at one point anyway held the record for a four-door car around Nürburgring. They are surprisingly quick through the corners. Now this is rear-wheel drive, so that it is a little bit more slidey and a little bit harder to control than the Audis, but as you can see, the Stig's not having too many issues with it. Brakes aren't quite as good as I would personally like. Can be a little bit of a pain getting it stopped sometimes, but again, all in all, it's not that bad of a car. It has quite a nice engine. I do like the noise of this one as well. The sounds on this game are so cool. They really are. But yeah, it's really not too bad a car to drive through the follow-through. Every car here has had to brake through the follow-through when I was watching the replays, because they just don't have the grip of previous games. Although any of these cars in 4, I think you would have to be braking through the follow-through as well, because yeah, these are quite fast, and most of these aren't the lightest of sports cars, shall we say. Very few cars have actually gone through the follow-through flat out at any point, and the Cadillac is across the line with a fairly controlled lap, all things considered. Up next, we have the Shelby Mustang, the GT500 version. This is very slidey. This is very, very slidey indeed, as a Stig gets a bit too much oversteer on the exit, and then, yeah, that's not conducive to a good lap time doing that. It is quite fun. It's a great car to drive, this one, for silliness, but actually driving it fast is very tricky, as you get a big slide through the follow-through as well. I think Stig is just showing off there. Yeah, with the reduced grip, if you like, of these cars on here, it's slidey. It's tough to drive this thing fast. The brakes aren't fantastic either, which adds to the difficulty. You've just got to be so careful on the throttle with any of these big, powerful muscle cars. Any of the big, powerful rear-wheel drive cars, you've got to be careful. But especially with the muscle cars, or the modern muscle cars in this case, that don't have a lot of grip. It's a tough car to drive. With Stig lining up now for what turns out to be his fastest lap with the car. Off the line, there is much a wheel spin in this car. I think this is the one that does the longest wheel spin off the line. I'm just trying to have a think. Did anything? Oh, no, I think it is. It's a tough car to drive. It's a tough car to get a proper fast lap time out of it. However, while it might be slow through the corners, of course, it does have an awful lot of power, and acceleration-wise, it is very, very quick. I believe the PI of this car is the top of B class. It is 600 PI. Which means that, you know, it might not be as good through the corners, but it makes up for it in the straight. It is phenomenally quick through some of these bits. And the Top Gear track is an interesting track, this one. We've had in the past, the cars that have dominated here, or have done, shall we say, exceedingly well compared to their PI, have been the cars with a lot of grip. Lotus 211 and ACR Viper spring to mind. However, there's quite a lot of straights here. So you do need some straight line speed. Cars like the 205 T16 that are very good through the corners but have no straight line speed do struggle. So it's a tough track. If you're building a car to race around here for whatever reason you might be, it is a tough track to build a car for, as there's a lot of fast corners, and there are also a lot of fast straights, so you need a lot of grip and you need a lot of speed. The Mustang has the lot of speed bit and doesn't have the lot of grip bit, and as it comes around the final corner, it was a very cautious final couple of corners, and Stig almost drops it after he puts a wheel on the grass. That's another thing you've got to be very careful with when it comes to this game. Up next we have the Lamborghini Aventador, another very nice and safe four-wheel drive car. You can put the power on so early in these four-wheel drive cars compared to the rear-wheel drive ones. It is quite nice to have four-wheel drive now. Previous games you'd avoid four-wheel drive because of all the understeer it generates, and you don't get a huge amount of benefit on traction, whereas on here you really do. You really do get a lot of... You can put the power on so much earlier and get a lot more speed out of some of the corners than you can with the rear-wheel drive cars. So it is certainly something to consider now running four-wheel drive cars. Okay, you might think it's a little bit cheaty, but well, who cares? They're still pretty damn good. Now, one thing to consider with this track, I saw Stig do this a couple of times, is if you go out wide over here and you have a wheel on the curb when you brake, this happens. When there's Stig's doing a hot lap or whatever, you want to run as close to sort of that grass line as possible to get the best run into the second to last corner. However, if you put a wheel on that curb, you go round, or almost go round. So that was something new for Stig to deal with these cars, as well as all the new handling mechanics. You can't quite take the same line as you could before. Now this is probably the fastest car on paper that we have here. It is, it's four-wheel drive, it's incredibly fast in a straight line, so it's got good acceleration out of the corners, and yeah, it should be pretty damn good around here. Being four-wheel drive, there is still some understeer to contend with these cars. However, you just being able to plant the throttle when it comes out of the corner is quite a nice change from the slidey, scary muscle car. As far as sort of everything else goes with it, brakes are not bad. I mean, this is a mighty fast car in a straight line, so yeah, it's useful to have some good brakes. Again, you're not going to go flat out through the follow through. I think this was the fastest car here today through the follow through. It was about 105 miles an hour, which is fairly similar to what these cars were doing in Forza 4. Stig being careful not to put a wheel over the curb this time around into the second to last corner. The second to last corner is actually a little bit easier now. They've got a big camera pole thing there, so it's easier to aim towards the apex, and the Aventador has got across the line safely. Up next we have, this could be the hardest car in the entire game to drive, I think. It is the rough CTR Yellowbird. For a long time I've said that the V8 supercars are probably the trickiest to drive because you have to be so gentle with the throttle. In this car you don't have to be too gentle with the throttle. The real problem is that it has sort of Lamborghini Aventador speed on 1980 suspension, and the engine is in the boot. When you have sort of 67%, I think it's 67% of the weight over the rear wheels, it's great for launch, it accelerates like mad and you can get good drive out of the corners without having too much wheel spin. Problem is, through the high-speed corners, the front of the car lifts up. And that is terrifying when you're doing 120 miles an hour through the follow-through, and the front of the car is trying to go airborne. This is really not an easy car to drive. It is terrifying through the high-speed corners. Low-speed corners is fine. It has great traction out of the low-speed corners. You see coming out of the hammerhead there, Stig has no problems with it because the engine's in the rear, but through these bits, it is terrifying. I have no idea how Stig got a lap out of this car. You will see as you go through the follow-through, look at the front of the car is lifting up. I'm not sure if the front wheels were quite in the air there, but they were mighty close. So this is a terrifying car to drive. It is incredibly fast in between corners and slow speed corners. It's great, but at the high speed corners, good God, I have no idea how he got that lap with that car. It is ridiculous driving that thing. And we finish with the oldest car of the lot, a Shelby Cobra. This car actually doesn't handle that much differently from the Forza 4 version because it was slidey in 4, it's slidey in 5. It's still a mighty quick car. Considering the age of this thing, it is massively fast. It is not terrible through the corners. I mean, okay, the brakes aren't quite up to the Aventador standard, no, and it doesn't quite have the rough sort of acceleration. But it was, I would say it was better through the corners than the Shelby GT500. It has a little bit less power than the GT500, so you can, it's hard to quite say why this thing, it shouldn't handle better than the GT500, but it kind of does. As you come through the hammerhead, Stig not having too many issues with this car. There is a bump on the exit of hammerhead that I haven't noticed in my practice runs, that being as bigger on this game as it was in 4. We saw in the final supercar, whatever, Stig laps, that the bump there was causing some issues with them cars. I have tested a few of the supercars around here, or a few of the hypercars probably you should call them, and that bump isn't quite as big of a problem anymore, so they may have redesigned the track a little bit as the Cobra comes up towards the last corner, well controlled, and the Cobra is across the line. So there we go, we have 7 cars in for the opening sort of power lap to sort of fill up the leaderboard, so we have some things to compare to. Unsurprisingly, it is the Aventador that goes first with a 1:15.4. The rough, I am amazed that that thing beat the Audi R8 around the course of a lap. While it's mighty fast accelerating, I have no idea how he kept that thing around the corners. If I was to choose between those two for a car to sort of drive on the road, I would have the Audi, just because the rough would kill me. But the rough is an exciting car to drive, but yeah, a rather big challenge. The Shelby, I am surprised that it managed to beat the Cadillac as well, because the Shelby is also not that easy to keep on the road. The Cadillac beat the Audi RS5 by the tiniest of margins, while the Cobra did relatively well, considering that's a car made in, what is it, 1965, I think, and it's only 0.8 of a second off an Audi RS5 and just under a second off a Cadillac CTS-V. That's pretty good lap time from the Cobra, actually. The rest of the leaderboard, yeah, is pretty much what you expected. Now, I thought it might be interesting to compare these lap times to the times that the Stig did in Forza 4. Now, only 3 of the cars that we have here are in 5. I don't know if the Audi R8 in 4 is the V10 Plus or just the normal V10. I don't know quite, so that might be a little discrepancy on there. Either way, the Aventador is a little bit slower, the R8 is a little bit slower, and the Cobra isn't actually too much slower. I think the reason for that is the Cobra, as I said, slidey on 4 is slidey on 5, so it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, whereas the lack of grip for the R8 and the Lamborghini is a little bit more pronounced. You can't carry quite as much speed through the corners with them, but still not a huge amount different. It's also considerably faster, I believe, than the real life times. Well, not quite as fast as it was before, but it is still faster than the real life times that the Aventador did. I think it's what did it do, 16 something in real life, so it is a little bit faster than them. Anyway, that is it. That is it for the first power laps. We'll probably be coming back to them as we do other challenges and reviews of cars and all of that sort of thing. We will see if we'll see what cars Stig can get around there in surprising times. I'm curious to see what the 211 can do. However, that is it for today, guys. So thank you very much for watching. I'm just going to take this time to briefly explain what's going on with the Let's Plays. I did have, I think I've made three more were made, and when I was making them I realised my capture card had messed up and screwed up the audio for them, so that's why there haven't been any. I was hoping to do more over this week, but I apologise that there hasn't been any since whenever the other one came out, Tuesday I think. Next week hopefully we'll be doing 3 or 4 a week. Not quite sure what days they'll be going out, but that is the plan at the moment. And I'm hoping we can get back to that, and I'm hoping I won't have any more capture card issues. Fingers crossed it has all worked. At the moment, it is working for now. So yeah, that's the plan on the Let's Play front and normal challenges. All the normal videos will carry on as normal. The Let's Plays will just be an extra one on certain days. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. So thank you very much for watching. If you have challenges or things you would like to see us investigate on Forza 5, please do leave them in the comment section, or if that is uselessly broken, you can leave them on our forums. However, until next time, goodbye.